So, hi, I'm Shiqing. Today I'm here at the Silver Park Elementary School with my lovely coach, Ray Finney. So, at the beginning, can you please introduce yourself to
Of course.
us? Yeah.
Hello, everyone. Again, my name's Ray, and I have been here at Sylvan Park for 2 years. This is my second year, I should say. I've been coaching in capacity for literacy for about 4 years. And before that, I was an instructional coach, so I kind of touched on a little bit of math in my trainings and in my work with teachers. So I did kind of, I want to say 30% math, 70% literacy. And before that, I taught second grade, I taught third grade, I taught fourth grade, and then here I am.
Thank you so much.
Of course.
Okay, so today what we are going to talk about is actually kind of based upon one reading I did last week.
Great.
It is from Shiqing, and the book is about early phases of reading and writing. So basically, it's about like reading storybooks with like preschoolers or like kindergarten kids. So my first question is actually very big and broad. So what is your criteria for kind of selecting storybooks for young readers like kindergarteners or your own kids?
Or even pre-K as well?
Yes.
Okay. I think this is a great question. I love it because I love storybooks. I love picture books. And I do a lot of selection because I have little kids. So my sons are 4 and 6. And what we do is I usually choose a book based on interests and likes that students might have. In preschool, it would be if I were doing a different, like a whole group versus like just picking books for my children to read at home. If I were in preschool, I would choose a lot of predictable textbooks. I would use a lot of big books so that they can see the pictures, so they can learn print concepts. Like I'm holding a book. This is the front cover. This is the back cover. This is how we read left to right. Those things are super important because I even noticed my 4-year-old, he doesn't know the words, but he's attempting to track print.
Okay.
So because he's seen his brother do it and because he's seen me do it, he's taking his finger and putting them under the words, which we know after like first grade, we want you to not do that. We want you to get that finger out of the text. But so books where there's large print and we can show examples. One thing I've noticed that we've gotten away from, I don't know when it happened, but it did happen, is we kind of got away from nursery rhymes, which some of them are really great and maybe a couple are a little creepy. Like if you read them again, you're like, wait, what? But we, like, Humpty Dumpty, like, he fell and he broke. Like, that's kind of sad. But, like, but other than that, and Jack and Jill, they fell down a hill chasing a pail of water, like, oh, my goodness. But if you turn them into silly things, nursery rhymes are really how kids started to learn to read, or Jack and Jill books are, is it Jack and Jill? Is it Dick and Jane? Dick and Jane, like, kids don't know who Dick and Jane are because they didn't start reading them. And I don't really think I would read a Dick and Jane book anymore. But, like, what I view those type of books as are, like, books with predictable text, books with repeated phrases. I think that's really important for 4 and 5-year-olds for sure. But then even... a lot of small group, because a predictable text could become, some kids are ready for that and some kids are over that. Like some kids are like, no, just read me a story with colorful language and colorful words and pictures, and they're ready for that. So I think it just depends. It goes back to knowing your students. What do they like to read? Maybe everyone loves Miss Wishy-Washy and we all read that, and maybe I dress up as Miss Wishy-Washy while I'm reading it. And everybody gets to be an animal. Like, things like that are engaging and fun. But that book is designed, for kids to really anticipate what's happening next and recognize words from pictures and, using picture clues to figure out what words are. So that's what I say to that.
Yeah. Great.
Okay.
Yeah. And also, then, I'm going to narrow down. So, in this chapter, actually, it talks about it go overs a lot of activities and questions that teacher and students can do together. And like this author definitely like he has his own very strong opinion in things. But like before we get to his really strong opinions, like I want to ask you another broad and general question. Like what activities or questions like you would definitely do when reading storybooks with kids, and like what you would definitely avoid doing.
And when you say kids, you still mean like early childhood?
Yeah, early childhood, like preschoolers or pre-K or kindergartners.
Okay. Yeah. I literally would just start asking questions about why do you like this picture? What do you see in this picture? Do you like it? Why do you like it? Or at the end saying like, did you like that book? Tell me why. Maybe stop in the middle and say, you know what's happening, or what do you think's going to happen next? But I wouldn't stop obsessively. I wouldn't stop like we do turn and talks here at school. I would not do that. I would just really at that age, I just want kids to learn. I want them to understand the joy of reading. I do not really want to focus so much on question, talk. And another reason that I have a problem with it is because, you know, I still would consider myself like well-read and kind of having a worldview, but there's still so much to learn. I want to learn more, I want to read more, I want to talk to more people. Just by happenstance, I do have like a circuit of people that I see on a yearly basis, a lot of European friends that I see if I travel there. And what's interesting is like my friends from Germany or my friends in Norway or, you know, they talk about school, they have kids and like they say, well, we don't really teach our kids to read until 7 or 8. And so I say, why? And they're like, well, it's just not appropriate. So they're taking a step back. And, you know, when they're saying it's not appropriate, we don't think it's appropriate. Well, they're listening to someone who wrote that it's not developmentally appropriate. Because, like, even I think back to my kindergarten years, I'm sure we read books and I'm sure she told us stories, but I just remember playing with my friends. I have a lot of good memories of playing in the water station and playing in the block station and counting and, you know, using an abacus to count or add, you know, like I just feel like we've gotten away from imaginative play. Like everything in a pre-K classroom used to be in a kindergarten classroom. So now when you go to a pre-K classroom, you will see like a kitchen or, you know, fake things where they can do imaginative play activities, play house, here's a doll. But that used to all be in a kindergarten classroom. And now you see none of that. And it's sad. So I think that to go back to the original question, I would say at this point, when I'm dealing with adolescents, the most important thing is to just share a story and to maybe tell your favorite part or maybe have them tell their favorite part. But I want you to think of reading as an enjoyment or a pleasurable activity versus a chore and something that's always attached to, now these are the standards and I believe in them, reading, writing, listening, and speaking. I think all of those things are crucial. But at age 5, I don't need to assign a task for every single book. Sometimes I just want to read a book. So kids learn, you know, to sit quietly and get engaged to a story. And we don't necessarily have to talk about it every other page. We can just, like, really sit and enjoy because that's what we do at home. And so I think, I think it was Emily Bushwild who said, like, children become readers on the laps of their parents. And that's 100% true. Children fall in love with reading because they're sitting in someone's lap, hearing a story, and using their imagination and looking at pictures and not stopping along the way to ask and answer questions or to talk. Like, that kind of thing naturally develops. And I think that's what we should be fostering rather than forcing.
Yeah, I agree. Like that kind of gives children a very different picture of like what reading is like. And also I think it goes back to like your point in like Miss Hunt's like readers workshop today. Like even though like we don't plan to kind of teach kids, we need to underline the title when we write on the title like in our writing, but that teaching point kind of just emerge like automatically.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so my last question is actually about making personal connections.
Okay.
So before asking you the question, here's a quote from the author. So like he is not kind of supportive of like doing personal connections. That is what he says. Okay, these questions pull the discussion away from the content available in the story, which usually needs discussion if children are to reach a deeper understanding. These questions also reduce opportunities for the teacher to use and explain some key vocabulary words as is possible during a more story-based discussion. So my question is, what do you think of like making personal connections in general?
Okay.
Like with young readers.
I think it's very helpful. But I don't disagree with this quote.
I understand.
So from the quote, I'm hearing that why do we spend so much time making personal connections when we can explain vocabulary and talk about a deeper understanding of the text? I think you get to that level by starting with making connections. So I think that it's, we call those the big engines. So like making connections, synthesizing, summarizing, inferencing, or inferring, I'm sorry. It's just, those are the big strategies that we use to get readers to a deeper understanding. I don't think they should be taught in isolation. I used to teach them in isolation 10 years ago. I'd say, like, this week we're going to work on synthesizing, or this week we're going to work on determining importance. And every book we read, we're going to try to determine its importance. Or every book we read this week, we're going to make a text-to-self connection or a text-to-world connection. So now, and I do understand explicitly teaching them. Like, I do understand why teachers are having a hard time getting away from teaching a strategy a week or a strategy a day or whatever. But truthfully, I heard someone say this and I was like, oh my word, like how eye-opening. David Lieben, I think is his name, and he works with Student Achievement Partners, or really creates a lot of work that they do. And he said, well, as an adult, when you're reading, do you, like if you're on the bus, do you stop and say, wow, I think I know what's going to happen next? Like sometimes, but you don't really, as an adult, you don't do that. But those are innate things that happen to you because you're a proficient reader. You do that in the head thinking. Same thing with connections. Like when I'm reading, I do say, oh man, this reminds me. I think that in my head, this reminds me just of another book. So there's the text-to-text connection I'm making. But we don't do that out loud. But the reason that we do them, I think, in our head is because I wasn't taught that way, but I do it now because I think I'm working in the world of literacy. And so I don't agree with them being taught in isolation. I think that the strategies should weave in and out of text. So like just like grammar or just like writing, like we underline the title. I don't think I need to do a 5-minute lesson on underlining the title. I feel like every time I write a title of a book in a morning meeting message, I'm going to point out that I underline the title. I think that every time I read a book, I don't need to tie it back to one strategy. I should read a book and say, wow, we know these are really good thinking strategies. Let's see how many, like, if it comes to you naturally, we might be making some connections today, or maybe we're going to determine why this part was super important. So I keep them up all year, and I like to refer to them and bring them out in context, because I just feel like that's how students are going to learn. That's what makes the learning sticky. So back to the original quote and question, I think that making personal connections is really important. I don't think it has to happen always. I don't think it has to happen in each lesson. But I think as a mom of young children, when we read, I hear so many, oh my gosh, Mommy, this is just like. So I feel like it's not something to overlook when kids do that. I don't think it always has to be so explicit. I think let it happen, and then kids are going to start making their own connections. But it's but teaching it does not necessarily mean that you're missing out time for deeper understanding or teaching vocabulary words. That's a part of reading in general. So if your literacy block doesn't include that, that's the real problem. It's not happening because you're stopping to identify a personal connection. Yeah.
Okay, that's great.
Yay.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I just remembered one other thing. Back to the first question, I was trying to think of the name and I couldn't think of it at all, but here in Metro schools, our pre-K follows something called the creative curriculum. And it is a bunch of books. It's a lot. It's like basically their scope and sequence for pre-K. I love the books. I don't agree with everything they're doing with the books. So, like, again, going back to activities and writing and charting and all of that with pre-K, I understand you're laying a foundation, but I feel like the choice of the activity has been... I feel like we're always trying to talk about scores and everything's attached to data and a number, and I do appreciate accountability. However, again, at 4, do I need the creative curriculum? It seems like it should be more about social emotional learning, which I believe all the books are tied to, but it seems like we're putting so much emphasis on word recognition and word identification and vocabulary and things like that when we should be nurturing feelings or, fostering the message, the central message of the book. And this is a great book with colorful words and colorful illustrations, but how does it make you feel, and what does that mean for us as a community of learners? So again, there's things that we can do to enrich our experience and to become readers and writers, or to have a readerly life or a writerly life, like Lucy Calkins says. But it doesn't necessarily have to be so much like a drilled down, top down, military style of this has to happen today. I think we've just lost sight of the heart of students and the love of reading. We're teaching kids how to
do skills and strategies.
Yeah, we're teaching them skills and strategies, but we're not saying it's okay to sit here and flip through pages and just look at the pictures. Like, that's okay. It's okay if you don't know how to read right now. You could just look at pictures, or maybe you could point out a couple words that you know because we just learned some sight words. Maybe you can draw a picture of how this makes you feel. It's okay, but it's okay not to do that too. It's okay to sometimes just read a story. And I think teachers feel these days that they cannot just read a story, and it's very upsetting because that's what you hear. But then data and accountability comes into play. So great. Well, I've enjoyed this so much. Thanks for interviewing me.